Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Word of Faith Fellowship radio program. Today we have a very special program. You're going to hear from people who their lives were in danger of death, and God brought them through. God protected them with His miraculous power. God's mercy, His grace saved these people's lives. And actually, we're going to go for the next several radio programs. And I believe you will be encouraged. I believe that when we finish these programs, you're going to have so much faith in Jesus Christ that He can protect your life as you hear the miracles one after another after another. We're going to have many people on these programs, and you're going to hear how God protected their lives. They're here today to testify, and they're thankful that they're here because they could have been destroyed but for God's grace. Now, some of the people that you're going to hear from, you're going to hear that they called upon the name of Jesus and Jesus saved them. And other people, you'll hear that they didn't know to call upon the name of Jesus at that time, but they look back and they see that God's hand was on their lives. So today we're going to start with Diane Farmer, who's here with me. And Diane has been part of the Word of Faith Fellowship for many years. She's a school teacher, and she is going to share about a time in her life when she used to teach school in Hendersonville and how God saved her life. So Diane, go ahead.
Well, I started a teaching job in Hendersonville. It was a new junior high, and so everything was all new. And I think the very first day, one of the teachers came to me, and she knew that I was someone that prayed. So she came to me and she asked, "Can we start praying every morning before class starts, and just pray for the school and all that's going on?" I said, "Yes, of course." So we did that, and that was in the beginning of the year. That was probably around September. So we prayed every morning. And one day, I would say maybe March, I was in the foods lab. I was a home economics teacher, and I was in the foods lab, and the class was about to dismiss. And the girls were all sitting in front of me, and I was at the desk, and I had brought a glass of tea from the cafeteria with me, and I had probably a couple of 3 inches, I would say, left in the glass. And so as the bell rang, I took a drink of the tea, and I felt a very serious burning sensation. And so immediately they were all leaving, and I ran to the teacher's room that had been praying with me, and I told her, her name was Diane also. I said, "I do not know what's happened to me, but I drank this, and there's something in it, and it is burning really bad all the way down." And she said, "Diane, the verse that comes to me, if you drink any deadly poison, it will not hurt you." And honestly, at the very moment she said that, I felt a warmth at the top of my head, and I felt it all the way to my feet. And I felt fine. I didn't think anything else of it. And I went back to class and taught for the rest of the day. And so after school was out, I did go to the doctor because I was 3 months into a pregnancy right then. I went to my doctor, and he was a good friend of the family. And we talked, and he said, "Diane, they probably just put a spice out of one of the cabinets in there." And I thought, well, that could possibly be. He said, "I'll take it." I had it in a little container. He said, "I'll take it and throw it away." And I said, "No, let me take it home because I think my husband wants to know a little bit more about what happened today." So I took it on home, and my husband, he took it to the police department because this was a small town and he knew a lot of the police. And so when he took it there, they went on and sent it to the State Bureau of Investigation so that it could be analyzed because they had a feeling something else was going on also. And we got the report back, and the report was there was enough sodium cyanide that was in that liquid that should have killed me and about 6 or 7 other people. And from there, of course, that made a lot of news. This was a small town, and a lot of news about something happening to a teacher, that someone had tried to kill a teacher in the community. And so it was all over the state and in the newspapers. And we did go to a trial. We did go through that, and because she was underage, she was protected by that. And then my husband and I did not want her life to be ruined.
Right.
That was really our heart for the rest of her life. And it is so important, that you know your day every day. And for that lady to come to me and ask me if I would pray with her,
That's right.
that set the stage for what was going to happen
Right.
on down the road. And and just learning to cry out to God and have the Word inside of your heart all the time to be able to know immediately that you need help. And God is always there to help. And not only was I protected, but as I was saying, I was 3 months into a pregnancy, and my son was protected, was untouched totally. There was no sign of anything that could have happened. And it is absolutely a miracle. That young girl, we think, was trying to get back into the graces of her friends. I mean, this was a junior high. It was a rural junior high. And there was some drug problems going on at that time. And her father cleaned guns. He had a little barn out in the back of the house, and he cleaned the guns with the sodium cyanide. So there must have been we think there was a daring act that she was to get back in her friends' graces by doing something daring. And that's all we know at this point.
Well, and what's amazing, Diane, is how your friend had the word of the Lord for you.
Exactly.
If you drink any deadly poison, God will save you. That was God's word for you, and you laid it to your heart. And here it was, you had a friend there that prayed with you every single day, and you see God's protection on your life. So what a powerful testimony. Of course, your son, who you were pregnant with, is my law partner.
That's
so
right.
Josh Farmer. And I can assure you, everybody listening, Josh has no problems. He's an incredible, amazing person, and he was unharmed too. So God protected both of you. What a powerful testimony. Thank you for sharing it. God's protection on your life. So thank you so much. And so we're going to have somebody else now come. Cheryl is coming, and we're going to move this program, and you're going to hear with so many people, we're going to pack it in, and you're going to hear powerful testimonies. We're just going to give you nutshells because we want to give God glory, and there's so many people in our church at Word of Faith Fellowship that wanted to share, and I thought, well, let's go ahead and try to pack them in. So Cheryl is here with us. Cheryl is from Connecticut. She came here to our church full-time, moved here not too long ago, but Cheryl grew up in Maine, in the coast, the shoreline of Maine.
Yes.
In her childhood. So Cheryl, your life is amazing. You were sharing with me amazing things I had no idea about you when you were young, and you are the one that gave me this idea for this program. You're the one who started this, okay? So what you shared with me, we had lunch that day, and would you share with us about what happened to you when you were a child?
Okay, I lived in Boothbay Harbor, Maine, right on the ocean. And of course, my brother and sisters and I were all into swimming, boating, mackerel fishing, water skiing, all that, all the time. And one day, my older brother Raymond, and a friend were pulling us around the cove on water skis. And he was going rather fast, really fast in that speedboat. And I was 12 years old, and I think I hit a pot boy with my water ski, and my water skis flew off my feet, and the tow rope of the water he was towing me with wrapped around both of my ankles and pulled me down to the bottom of the ocean. How I knew I was on the bottom of the ocean was because when I turned my head and looked to the left, there was a sunken hull of a ship that had been there since the 1800s, and they had been trying to pull it out of the flats mud, but never succeeded. So when I saw that hull, I knew that I was in trouble. I was literally drowning, dying, and I could feel my soul, my spirit, it was leaving me. I was drowning. Mm-hmm. And the thing came up out of me, and I said, God, I'm dying. I'm dying. And all of a sudden, I felt this huge push out of the water, and I went boom, flying up in the air about 10 feet and landed flat right on the ocean. And my brother finally realized what was happening. He turned around and he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Well, I guess I am now." And they took me back to the shore and put me on the dock, and all that water had left me and everything. So it was God. God saved my life.
Were you going to church at that time?
Yes, my dad made sure we went to church every single Sunday. Sometimes we had blizzards, and my brother and I would think, okay, we won't have to go to church to Sunday school day. So my dad said, oh yes, we're going to church and we're going to Sunday school. So my dad would put chains on the tires of the car, and he would drive us up to church to make sure we got there. Yes.
So you knew to call upon him when you were underneath the water, being trolled in the. You were in. Did you say you were in a bay or an area
It was a
close to the
cove.
shore?
It was a cove right in
Cove.
front of our house, and we were always out there with the boats, water
Right.
skiing around the cove and everything. But my brother always went too fast, so
And
that's
you were
what
sharing
happened.
with me, you had another incident on the boat again.
My brother.
Your mom, I don't know if she knew about this or what, but tell us about the other incident because your life had been spared multiple times.
Yeah, multiple. Okay, the next incident was my brother and a bunch of friends of his wanted to go out to spend the weekend on Mohegan Island, which is 17 miles offshore. So the only way you can get there is by boat. So they were going out there for the weekend, Friday night to Sunday, to look for arrowheads on Mohegan Island. So they all went out on Friday, my brother and his friends, and they stayed out there the whole weekend. They came back with a whole great big box of arrowheads. And so Monday after school, he came up to me, my brother, and said, "You want to go out and pick up the skipjack?" And so I said, okay, sure. So I don't know if he told my mom and dad where we were or not. But anyway, so we got into this friend's boat, and he drove us out to Mohegan Island. It was 17 miles offshore, like I said. And when we got to Mohegan Island, we got into the skipjack, and Billy took off in his speedboat, and we proceeded to go back to Booth Bay.
This is skipjack is like a small
Yes,
motorboat.
it's a tiny two-seater boat that sits right on top of the water. I mean, you
Okay.
can put your hand there and you're got the water right there.
Right.
So we proceeded to go back to the harbor, and we got 10 miles out, okay? And we looked, and the boat was taking on water. All of a sudden, it just started taking on all this water. It was like a geyser. All this water kept coming up through the floor of the boat. Well, previously, my dad had told my brother that the motor that he had on the boat was too big and too heavy for that skipjack. But anyway, so what happened was the skipjack filled up with water, and by that time, we knew that was it. There was no help around. There was
10
no
miles
land.
out is
There was
far. You probably could not. Could you see the land? at all?
no. There was no land. No,
Right.
nobody was around. No boat. There wasn't anything. So finally, we flipped the boat over, and we're hanging on to the boat. My brother and I. He gave me the life jacket, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this fishing boat came up over the horizon, and this man came over all by himself, and he says, "What are you kids doing out here? It's almost dark." He said, "What are you doing out here?" By that time, the boat had almost totally gone. And we said, my brother told him what happened. The boat filled up with water. The motor was too heavy for the boat. And so we jumped in the fishing boat with that one man in there. And he took us back to shore. And my mom and dad were on the wharf looking. The state police were there. They'd sent the Coast Guard out after us.
Mm-hmm.
And we turned around, and the boat with the fishermen disappeared.
Amazing. God sent that person to you.
Definitely.
When you shared this with me, I read this verse and I thought about you. I hadn't had time to tell you this, but we'll tell you now. Psalm 124, Cheryl, this is so powerful. It says, "If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say, the waters would have overwhelmed us and swept us away. The torrent would have gone over us. We are like a bird escaped from the snare of the fowler. The snare is broken, and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord who made heaven and earth." I was thinking about you under the water, wrapped up in the snare, and as this verse says, you were like a bird who escaped. And what an amazing thing. God protected your life. So powerful testimony. Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing that. The next person who's going to share is Suzanne. And Suzanne came here many years ago from California. But she actually spent time in South Africa many years ago when she was young. And Suzanne, you had an amazing thing happen to you. God protected your life in South Africa.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes. Okay. It was 1990. It was February of 1990, and I was 23 years old, and I had moved to South Africa in the very beginning of January. So I was there about 6 weeks. And if you know much about the history of that time period, there was communism was falling. Poland, the Berlin Wall. There was a lot of things going on. I mean, and so apartheid was next. So literally, when I got to South Africa, I moved to a beach town next to Cape Town, and I saw whites only signs being removed. I mean, that. It was a very crucial time in South Africa.
Right.
And so we got word that they were going to release Nelson Mandela from he had been in prison on Robben Island for 27 years.
Yeah.
And that was a really big deal.
It was. That was a big time in history.
It was a really big time in history. And I just had to be a part of it. That was kind of my big thing. I have to be there. And so here they're saying he's going to be released. I think it was the February 11th or something like that. And they said he's going to be released, and it was going to be really early in the morning. And they were going to release him, and then at some point, like noon, this is what was said. He was going to be like the city hall or town hall, downtown Cape Town, and do, give like a message or, give an address to the people. And so, I mean, naturally, they had time for everyone to come. It was packed out. And I mean, it wasn't just the tribe that Nelson Mandela was from. It was like every tribe. They were packing out Cape Town. And so it was full. And all I knew, I have to be there. I'm going to be there. So I start talking to all my friends. Are you going? Are you going? And everyone I talked to, nope, I don't think I'm going. Everyone I talked to. I had like a best friend at that time. He was from Australia. I thought, surely Rob will go. I talked to Rob. No, I don't feel like it. And I was like, you don't feel like it? Everyone I talked to didn't want to go. It's too hot. I'm tired. And that, I look back now, and that should have been my red flag. Mm-hmm. That should have been my warning. Nobody had it to go, but yet I just had to be there. And so I pushed myself to go. Everyone told me, you can't go by yourself, Suzanne. So we finally found a couple of 18-year-olds. They didn't know English, but they went with me. So we got on the train. I end up in Cape Town, and almost immediately I lose this little couple I was with. And if you know much about, Africa, first of all, it's their summer. So it's beyond hot, and it's packed out with all these people, like I had said, and they're waiting. And at this point, it's late afternoon. So some of them have been waiting, 8 hours in the heat, longer than that even. And some of them are getting very restless. And as time goes, I'm starting to feel very uneasy. The drums are going. You start hearing arguing amongst each tribe, the different people. So I'm walking around, and I'm all of a sudden feeling like I'm feeling very uneasy about this. And you're starting to hear, like I said, arguing. People, it's getting loud. And I also noticed, and I know I wasn't, but I felt like I was the only white female walking around. It was like a sea of Africans of all different tribes. And I very much felt like a fish out of water, and I felt like I really stood out. And I just started being very aware of this. So I started walking around. Now, the city hall, which is where he was going to do his address, was the main part of Cape Town. And I started kind of walking just a ways a little bit. And there's big trees. All the people were up in the trees. So I walked away a little bit. And all of a sudden I was near a storefront. And it looked as if a rock went flying. And a whole storefront glass smashed. And now there again, with all this stuff going on, all the unsettling, and you can feel the rumblings of something is going to break loose here. And the South African police were all around, very heavily armed. And when I saw that rock, is what I thought it was, fly into that glass, everything started. It was like total chaos. And I heard gunfire being shot. Then I saw other things flying, and I literally I thought, that's a Molotov cocktail, and they were flying. It was these homemade bomb type things in bottles, and they were flying, and storefronts were being broken left and right. And all I knew is gunfire was going, and it was like a mix of gunfire like this, because the South African police were all around. And here I am right in the middle of it, because that whole situation, there wasn't riots going on with all the many people. It was just over kind of to the side. So I'm off near those storefronts, and all I knew to do with all this going around, and there's smoke everywhere, is there were cars parked. And so I went running to the back of a car, and I got behind a tire, and I literally held the tire like this, and I kind of would go do this number because the gunfire was going. And I went like that, and all of a sudden a bullet went whoosh, like that, right near my head. And at that moment, my heart stopped. And I heard something so clear, and it was, "What are you doing here?" And I don't even know if I said it out of my mouth. That's how audible it was. And if I did, I did, but it was God saying it to me. And all I knew is, what have I done, God, that I'm in this mess? And I can't tell you what happened next. I don't even know how I got out of it. All I know is I wasn't buying the car anymore, and I was running as fast as I could away from all the gunfire, and I ran towards the train station. And I got on the train, and I went back home. And I didn't even know how I did it. God did that for me. And when I got all the way home, it was night. I traveled by myself, and everyone's sitting around listening to the radio and listening to Mandela. He finally showed up. It was dark after I left, and they're like, "Weren't you supposed to be there listening to this?" And I'm like, they have no idea what I had just been through. But all I knew is God didn't have to do that for me. We make a lot of mistakes, and we do a lot of things, and we push through to do our own thing. And I thought God was so merciful to get me out of that and save my life, because it very easily could have gone the other direction.
Right. And Suzanne, you're sharing about how in the midst of things we get into, when we don't listen to God, we do things that He didn't tell us to. There's mercy that we can look back and see on our lives so many times. When we were out of the will of God, God had mercy on us. And sometimes when you're out of the will of God, it leads to destruction. It leads to death. I mean, it's very serious. That's why God warns us about hearing His voice. But God's hand was on your life. He protected you, and here you are today. God knew the plan that He had for you to be His minister and share with others. And so, I was just thinking about Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall remain stable and fixed under the shadow of the Almighty, whose power no foe can withstand. And, that's what you were doing in the midst of realizing that you shouldn't be there. You turned your heart to God. You found that place in God in the midst of it. And of course, it goes on, and it's so powerful because it says, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. On Him I lean and rely, and in Him I confidently trust." And that's what you did. You turned your heart to God in the midst of it.
Yes.
And He was your refuge right there in the midst of the cars and ducking and bullets going right by you. God was your refuge. He was your fortress. So powerful. Thank you so much for testifying to that.
You.
And so we're going to wrap up this program with Robert. Robert's coming, and Robert has an amazing life. He has been on this program before. He shared his powerful testimony. I asked him to come back today to just give you a short excerpt of how God spared his life many years ago in Vietnam. Yes. He was in the army in Vietnam. And Robert, you had so many amazing things happen, but Go ahead and share with us.
Okay, this was in 1965, the Vietnam conflict, and I was in a communications group, and we were training in the Philippines, and it was time for us to go to Vietnam. So they took us on a flight, a few of us, to Saigon. And we landed at Saigon, got checked into a hotel, and the word came out, there is a great floating restaurant on the Saigon River that you want to take advantage of and go have a meal there. It is tremendous. Well, we were going to be leaving the next morning to go to Da Nang. So we knew this was our only opportunity to do this. So we had the buddy system. You could never go anywhere alone. So another young man in our group went with me, and we went to the floating restaurant on the river to eat. And it was packed out like they say it is. And we got down there and ordered and ate and had just a wonderful time. There was other military on there and many Vietnamese. And as we went through our meal, and we weren't there that long, he said to me, he said, you know, Robert, I really want to go downtown Saigon. I want to go to the bars. Well, I didn't drink. That wasn't me, but we're together. So I said, okay, I'll go with you. So we excused ourselves out early, and we went. Little did we know that the Viet Cong had strapped 2 bombs to the bottom of that floating restaurant. And it wasn't 15 or maybe 20 minutes after we headed to town, away from there, that they exploded. And on that restaurant, there wasn't much way to be protected. It ended up, I checked out the final totals here the other day, 31 were killed, 9 American soldiers, many were wounded, and 11 more American soldiers were wounded at that same time. And I thought, you know, we were on there, and we were sitting kind of in the middle. And only because he wanted to do that, I saw, you know, I wasn't a Christian. I didn't have a relationship with God. But here was God protecting me, keeping me safe from harm, death's way. And he knew that there would be a day in my life that I would bow my knee and come to him. I didn't know it. I was, never been to church in my life. I wasn't a Christian. But when we got out of there and we found out that happened, he said, we were lucky. And I didn't respond to that. I didn't say anything. Words started coming out about the dead bodies and the people being carried off of there on ambulance and everything. And, here was our first day in Vietnam. And we're getting ready to go to Da Nang and get out in the jungle and do some communications security work to try to help, protect others. Right. And I thought, this is really something.
Robert, your testimony, and you've shared before on the radio program, it took us 3 programs to cover your life. And at some point later, you bowed your knee to Jesus Christ. And your testimony is powerful. Listeners, if you want to go back, you can see it on our website, wordoffaithfellowship.org. Powerful testimony. But, when you bowed your knee to Jesus finally, I know God walked you through all of this and showed you his hand on your life, how he protected you. And the verse that really came to me, I was thinking about your life, Robert, and I was thinking about Lamentations 3, where it says, the steadfast love of the Lord, it never ceases.
Yes.
His mercy, it never comes to an end. And it says that his mercies are new every morning, and great is his faithfulness. God's mercy that's been on your life and my life, even when we did not know him. He loved us and He
That's right.
protected us. So what a powerful testimony.
So grateful.
We are out of time. We are going to keep going. I hope you listen to our next programs because they're going to be powerful. You're going to hear amazing, miraculous testimonies of God's protection on our lives, and God gets all the glory. So join us as you continue to listen of the miracles of God. Thank you very much.